Deion Sanders taught his sons that masculinity doesn't mean muting yourself. That lesson shows up in every frame of the vlog, even when Deion himself is absent. His fingerprints are on the cadence, the ease, the refusal to shrink or apologize. What's on display isn't bravado. It's a cultivated resilience, a visible result of emotional literacy passed down like game film. And when Shedeur and Shilo laugh together without competing, joke without posturing, it's not just wholesome content. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. It's a full-blown challenge to the alpha warrior myth the NFL has long depended on. They model something different. Strength that doesn't require domination. Where older systems rewarded silence and gratitude, Shedeur offers something they can't contain: coherence. He controls both the pace of a drive and the pacing of a vlog. He doesn't just show up to the conversation around race, excellence, and quarterbacking. He sets the terms. This is what modern leadership looks like: adaptive, self-authored, and disinterested in gatekeeper approval. The NFL didn't just get surprised, it got exposed. When Shilo Sanders dropped that 15-minute vlog of his brother Shedeur navigating Paris Fashion Week, it didn't just go viral. It rattled the very foundation of how the league defines professionalism, leadership, and who gets to own the narrative. And what's wild is that it wasn't some big budget rollout. No flashy endorsement campaign. No sit-down interview with a sanitized caption. It was a camera, a cut, and an uncompromising frame of Shedeur being exactly who he is. No filter. No translator. For years, black quarterbacks have had to thread an impossible needle. Show just enough confidence, but not too much. Be articulate, but not too expressive. Be excellent, but never too comfortable in your own skin. That's the blueprint the NFL has quietly enforced through media pressure, institutional norms, and coded expectations. But what the Sanders brothers just did is toss that blueprint out and upload a new one. Paris wasn't a vacation. It wasn't even a flex. It was a direct intervention. Shedeur didn't go to pose for cameras. He went to claim space, elite space, cultural capital. And not once did he dilute his voice or posture for approval. He walked into one of the most gate-kept spaces in the world and moved like he belonged. Because he does. Not as a guest. Not as a novelty. As a peer. And that right there, that shook something deep. Because the NFL and its media orbit still function on this unspoken rule. You could be great, but only if you stay in your lane. The moment you start editing your own story, the moment you bypass traditional platforms, the moment you center joy and autonomy as strategy, you're suddenly distracted. But Shedeur's vlog wasn't distraction. It was a masterclass in quarterback cognition, just reframed. The way he edited that footage, that's neural efficiency. Cutting a 40-minute take into 15 minutes of tight, emotionally resonant, narratively driven content, that's the same cognitive machinery used to diagnose blitzes, ship protections, and make split-second reads. It's not extra. It's proof. That calm timing you saw on screen, it's not new. That's how he plays. And still, the reaction wasn't look at this brilliant expression of quarterback intelligence. It was, shouldn't he be focused on football? Which tells you everything about who still holds the mic in these conversations and how uncomfortable they are when they lose grip on the narrative. Because here's the truth. This vlog wasn't about optics. It was about authorship. Shedeur didn't perform excellence with camera. He brought the camera into a space he already operates in with full command. The luxury, the language, the humor, the ease. It was all integrated. There was no switch to flip. No version of himself to construct, just fluency in real time. And the sibling dynamic? That was never filler. That was the infrastructure. What Shedeur and Shilo showed wasn't just brotherhood. It was a living model of emotional intelligence. No performative rivalry, no alpha male tension, just mutual respect, trust, and boundaries. Qualities that translate directly into composure under pressure. In a league that often rewards stoicism but punishes vulnerability, this was something entirely different. Relational resilience. That kind of support system doesn't just make you likable. It makes you unstoppable. When your inner circle isn't competing with you, when your family isn't dragging you back into manufactured drama, you develop an unshakable core. That's why Shedeur can be joyful without losing focus. Why he can be stylish without being distracted. Why he can be calm and still in total control. But the reaction to that exposed something even bigger. It showed how much of the NFL's framework still relies on controlling image and access, on keeping athletes in tightly monitored lanes. And when someone like Shedeur steps outside those lanes, not recklessly, but with full composure and vision, it makes the old machinery look broken. The exits of people like Fansky and Tommy Ree, that wasn't coincidence. That was the system responding to failure. Not Shedeur's failure. Their own. They tried to manage a story that didn't want their edits. They thought they could shape the rollout, the reception, the tone. But Shedeur had already gone direct audience. And when that happened, they weren't needed anymore. Worse, they were in the way. And that's the real fear: irrelevance. Legacy media, institutional gatekeepers, traditional scouts, they all got used to being the final filter. But Shedeur didn't come to be filtered. He came to distribute, to narrate, to own. And that's not just personal empowerment. It's structural shift. Younger fans get it immediately. They don't need legacy platforms to tell them what excellence looks like. They see it in real time, in real clips, unmediated. And they're not asking athletes to choose between being great and being whole. They expect that fusion. They expect their leaders to be fluent, not just in playbooks, but in identity, in storytelling, in platform mastery. That's why the joy as distraction narrative falls so flat. Because joy isn't a contradiction to excellence. It's a signal of calm under pressure, of emotional regulation, of the kind of groundedness that doesn't require constant reinforcement. You don't see Shedeur trying to be cool. You see someone who knows who he is and doesn't owe anyone an explanation for it. And that's where the threat really lies. Because when you're no longer dependent on institutional approval, when you no longer need to fit into someone else's template of what greatness is supposed to look like, you become impossible control. Shedeur didn't ask for legitimacy. He assumed it. He walked through Paris as comfortably as he walks into a pocket, collapsing at full speed. Calm, precise, eyes forward. And whether the critics want to admit it or not, that is quarterback behavior. This vlog didn't diminish his focus. It documented it, not on the field, but in how he processes, edits, presents, and commands space. It showed that his leadership isn't constrained to a huddle. It's active everywhere. It's integrated. It's deliberate. And it's coming from a player who doesn't flinch when the system flinches at him. That's the new bar. And the league is either going to raise its standards to meet it or start looking like it's stuck in a time loop, replaying outdated definitions of what leadership, discipline, and professionalism mean. Shedeur didn't just show us that the future of football is more fluid, more intelligent, more emotionally grounded. He showed that it's already here, that the quarterback of today doesn't need to be manufactured. He just needs to be unfiltered. And this time, the edit belongs to him. So if you're watching this moment and recognizing what's really happening, say something. Drop your thoughts below. Share this with someone who still thinks greatness only counts when it's silent. Hit that like. Subscribe for more of these cultural ruptures in real time, because the game's already changed. And the people still waiting for a press release to tell them that, they're already behind. And here's where the shift becomes undeniable. By the time Shedeur Sanders steps off the plane from Paris, the conversation isn't about whether he belongs at the top of the draft board anymore. It's about whether the institutions designed to evaluate him are even qualified to do the job. Because what he just demonstrated with that vlog, yes, a vlog, with a level of leadership, cognitive fluency, and cultural precision that simply doesn't fit in the old metrics. You saw the precision in his edits, the symmetry of his tone, the intentional pacing. That wasn't an athlete making content. That was a quarterback operating in another system, off the field, but fully dialed in. And yet, even with all that clarity, some folks still try to frame it as excess, as indulgence, as if joy, fluency, and cultural presence were liabilities. That's the tell. That's the discomfort surfacing. Because for years, the NFL has demanded one thing from black quarterbacks above all else: stoicism. Not just professionalism, controlled, silent discipline. No sudden movements, no style that's too distinct, no voice that's too loud. and definitely no joy that reads as unbothered. You can succeed, but only within the structure. You can win, but not while being too free. And Shedeur, he rejected all of it without ever saying a word. His vlog wasn't just travel content. It was a rebuttal to every coded expectation the league has projected onto players like him for decades. The expectation that he should be grateful, that he should wait his turn, that he should tone it down, humble it out, shrink it in. But in Paris, Shedeur didn't just show up, he took up space. And not in a loud, performative way. In a calm, grounded, unapologetic way. That's why it hit so hard. Because the spaces he was moving through weren't neutral. They were historically exclusive. Fashion Week in Paris isn't just a glamorous event. It's a fortress of Eurocentric aesthetic power. A place where black athletes are occasionally invited but rarely centered. And yet Shedeur walked through those rooms with the same demeanor he has in the pocket. Scanning, focused, in rhythm. Never asking for validation. Simply being. Fully. And when the camera caught that energy, it became something bigger than just a style statement. It became a disruption. That disruption is also what made the backlash feel so calculated. Let's not pretend it was about football. No one watching that vlog could mistake Shedeur's presence for distraction. He wasn't unfocused. He was executing a different kind of playbook, one that bypasses traditional gatekeepers and speaks directly to an audience that's not interested in sports mythology that punishes personality. The truth is, the NFL and its legacy media structure got caught flat-footed. They still think the formula is perform, win, smile, and don't rattle the cage. But younger athletes and fans aren't working off that formula anymore. Shedeur's vlog didn't just break the fourth wall. It exposed the wall for what it is, outdated, shallow, and terrified of depth. What's even more telling is how obvious the institutional discomfort became. The exits of figures like Fansky and Tommy Ree weren't isolated HR moves. They were retreat signals. Proof that when narrative control slips away, the old guards don't know how to recalibrate. They misread the moment entirely. Thought they were still the ones in charge of the story. Thought they could still shape the image of Shedeur into something more digestible. But Shedeur had already written the script, edited the footage, uploaded the message, and connected directly with millions before they could even respond. That's what power looks like now. Not loud, not brash, direct. And this directness isn't accidental. It's built from somewhere. You can trace it back to Deion Sanders' parenting philosophy, not in the sound bites and flashy quotes, but in the foundation, in the way Shedeur moves, in the confidence that doesn't slip into arrogance, in the humor that doesn't drift into mockery, in the decisiveness that never feels performative. This isn't natural charisma. It's cultivated self-possession. That's what Deion passed down. A model of masculinity that doesn't depend on dominance, but on clarity. That clarity is exactly what Shedeur demonstrated when he edited that vlog. Because editing isn't just a mechanical process. It's an act of prioritization, of choosing what matters, of knowing what to include and what to cut. That's quarterbacking, plain and simple. From the field to the timeline, it's the same skill, pattern recognition under pressure. So no, the vlog wasn't extracurricular. It was documentation. Proof that what makes Shedeur elite doesn't stop at the hash marks. That his decision-making, his calm, his vision, it travels, it transfers, and it translates into every room he walks into. Whether that room is filled with blitzing linebackers or couture designers. And the fact that he brought Shilo along and centered that sibling dynamic, that was its own challenge to how sports narratives get written. Because we're so used to seeing teammates compete, brothers get compared, personalities clash for camera. But what Shedeur and Shilo showed was something else entirely. Emotional intelligence in motion. Trust. Non-competition. Shared light. That's not just good TV. That's psychological infrastructure. In a world where public scrutiny turns vulnerability into clickbait, Shedeur and Shilo have built a system of emotional safety. That safety isn't soft. It's structural. It's the kind of foundation that allows someone like Shedeur to stand firm when the system starts shaking. Because when the criticism comes, it can't destabilize you if you're not standing on shaky ground. Which brings us to the final, most important point. This isn't just a moment. It's a shift. Shedeur's Paris vlog wasn't a break from football. It was an evolution of it. The idea that greatness can't be multidimensional is collapsing. The idea that seriousness equals suppression is collapsing. And the idea that leadership can only exist in a stoic, pre-approved format is collapsing. In their place, we're seeing a new model emerge. Leadership that's expressive, professionalism that's joyful, strategy that's emotional, and quarterbacks who don't apologize for integrating their whole selves into the story. That's the future, not just of football, but of public life for athletes. A future where the myth isn't handed to them. It's built by them. A future where narrative sovereignty is a core skill, not a side hustle. And Shedeur just gave the league a preview of what that future looks like. The question now isn't whether Shedeur can handle the NFL. It's whether the NFL can handle him. So let's just call it what it is. The Shedeur Sanders Paris vlog was not a moment. It was a disruption, not a flashy detour, not some viral stunt. It was a calm, composed detonation of everything the NFL thought it understood about how quarterbacks are supposed to carry themselves. And the league wasn't just stunned. It was revealed, stripped down, because the institution that has long dictated the image of leadership was suddenly on the receiving end of a masterclass in narrative control from a 21-year-old who edited his own footage, told his own story, and didn't wait for anyone's sign-off. The edit was the point. Every cut, every shot, every pause. It was quarterbacking on a different field. Shedeur's sense of timing, of rhythm, of what to show and when to show it, was a mirror of what he does on game day. Scan the field, see the defense, anticipate the opening, make the throw. Except this time, the field was the fashion capital of the world. The defense was a long-standing matrix of racialized expectations. And the throw? It was a perfectly timed cultural statement. I am not here to fit your mold. I'm here to outgrow it. And when that statement landed, the response exposed just how outdated the mold really is. The backlash didn't critique the vlog's quality. It couldn't. The visuals were clean. The pacing was tight. The storytelling was clear. So the criticism pivoted. It became about focus, professionalism, and that vague old trope, distraction, as if joy is a threat, as if style undermines substance. As if a black quarterback smiling on camera somehow makes him less serious about his craft. But here's the thing. They weren't watching a distraction. They were watching discipline. Cognitive, emotional, cultural discipline. And it didn't look like what they were used to. So they tried to shrink it back into a box it had already outgrown. Shedeur didn't engage. Because that's the brilliance of this entire rollout. There was no defense. No counter-argument. No Twitter thread, just presence, stillness, a complete refusal to justify something that was already self-evident. The work was a statement. The video was a response. And the NFL, it suddenly found itself caught in a cultural lag, because while Shedeur was operating in real-time fluency, speaking directly to fans, controlling his own visuals, weaving together identity, family, and strategy, the league was still clinging to the idea that leadership has a uniform, that it requires some mythical humility that only ever seems to mean don't rock the boat. But what Shedeur proved effortlessly is that leadership without identity is just performance. And he's not performing. He's practicing presence. Not the kind you rehearse. The kind you build. Over time. Through trust. Through emotional literacy. Through cultural clarity. That's why his dynamic with Shilo matters so much. Because it shows what secure attachment looks like in public. Not a performance of closeness, but an actual functional bond. Emotional infrastructure on camera. In a space where so many athletes are expected to posture, Shedeur doesn't have to. He's not vying for attention. He's not playing to the crowd. He's not trying to out-alpha anyone. He just is. And that sense of quiet confidence, that absence of desperation, is what makes him such a disruption. Because systems that depend on fear, scarcity, and external validation don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need them. And then you look at who couldn't stay in the room. Fan Sky, Tommy Ree. The folks who were supposed to manage, mentor, control, they're out. Not because of scandal or failure, but because the system they represent doesn't work anymore. They came in with outdated blueprints for how to mold a quarterback into something the league would accept. But Shedeur wasn't interested in being molded. He already knew who he was. And that's what they misread. They thought their job was to shape his image. But Shedeur had already published his image, edited, exported, and distributed. So, where does that leave the NFL? In a position it's not used to, catching up. Because let's be real, the fans aren't confused. They know exactly what this is. They watched the vlog, saw the ease, saw the range, and immediately clocked it as leadership. Not the kind you memorize for press conferences. The kind you feel. The kind that's confident enough to laugh, to be stylish, to let others shine. That's not distraction. That's regulation. That's knowing how to stay centered when everything around you wants to turn you into a product. The vlog wasn't about fashion. It was about fluency. Cultural fluency. Media fluency. Emotional fluency. It showed how integrated Shedeur is, not just as a player, but as a person. And that kind of wholeness, that's what really challenges the system. Because the old archetype depended on fragmentation. You could be the athlete, but not the artist. The leader, but not the joy bringer. The winner, but not the narrator. Shedeur refuses that split. His spiral and his style, interconnected. His decision-making and his denim, same brain. His humor and his high performance, same person. He's not switching hats. He's wearing them all at once, and doing it without ever breaking stride. So when NFL calls this a new era, the real question is, are they ready to meet it? Because it's already here. And it doesn't care about your outdated definitions of discipline. It doesn't care how many times you say focus, like it's a virtue. What it cares about is authenticity, velocity, integrity. And if the league can't recalibrate its frameworks, it's going to find itself watching greatness unfold from the sidelines. Shedeur's not waiting. He's not knocking on the door. He's not asking to be let in. He's building something around it. And the people who get it, they're already inside. So what now? This isn't just about Shedeur anymore. It's about the shift from institutions to individuals, from caricature to complexity, from myth-making to self-authorship. The quarterback is no longer just the on-field general. He's the off-field editor, producer, and strategist. And Shedeur's Paris vlog was the most polished rollout of that new paradigm to date. So if you're still holding on to the idea that greatness can only look one way, tighten up, because the next wave isn't waiting for approval. It's already uploading, already connecting, already leading. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because we're not just witnessing change. We're watching a system recalibrate in real time, like this if you see it. Share this with someone who still thinks leadership comes with a dress code. And subscribe, because the story, it's just getting started. The playbook's been rewritten. The future has already arrived. And Shedeur Sanders is calling it audibles now.